motivate, inspire, educate. Welcome to Ultra Everything.
Hey everybody, it's Thomas Messis with Ultra Everything Podcast. Thank you for being part of our community. We're excited to have you. Today I have a tremendous honor. This guy has been influential in my life. About 9 years ago, I actually had the opportunity to be introduced to this gentleman, and he forever changed my business trajectory, life, and so many different things. So I'm excited to have Mark Tobiassen today. So welcome, Mark.
Really happy to be here, Thomas.
Hey, thank you for being here, my friend. So, yeah, this is really cool. We've been talking about this a little bit,
We have.
and I'm super excited to have you here today. So,
Awesome.
And I look back, and we actually met. I was going back to actually when I met you, and this was back in 2015. And if anybody remembers 2015, we had just come out of this huge financial craziness in the world of 2008, 9, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
And in little Albuquerque here, it always seems that we always kind of trend a couple years after everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2015, it's like we were just starting to kind of get things going in momentum. And one of the most important things that happened to me was getting introduced to you, and then really being able to really set myself up and really get clear of what I wanted to accomplish in my business. And today, a lot of people that work in my office, they have no idea, but all the systems and things that we put in place back then are things that we use every single day today. So it's pretty cool stuff, man.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome stuff. So I'm super excited to have you. I wanted to kind of start off with letting you kind of introduce yourself as far as to the audience of,
Sure.
of what you do, how you do it, and how you are able to influence not only entrepreneurs, but small business people, athletes, all those things.
Sure.
So.
Well, again, thanks for having me here. It's been a real pleasure, or it is a pleasure to be here, and will be a pleasure, I'm sure, to be here. So I like to look at coaching, the lens I look through when I think of coaching is really, it's real similar to athletic coaching, or if you've ever worked with a personal trainer. Let me go down that rabbit hole with personal trainers. So.
Okay.
Because I have one I work with and have had on and off my pretty much whole life. And yes, I am a retired or sort of semi-retired athlete. I still work out, but I don't do anything competitively, but I used to. So.
Well, you're a little tall, so I'm going to say basketball.
Yeah, it's a good guess.
Okay.
So the idea of a personal trainer is you go to the gym by yourself and you work hard and you, as far as you push yourself, you think you push yourself, you think you know your limits. And then you take that same hour and you go to your trainer, but what he can do or she can do immediately is see what you cannot see. So you're lifting that weight and your elbow's out and he goes, hey Mark, put that elbow straight so we don't cause any damage. And so it's those distinctions that, because we as humans were not given the gift of a camera outside ourselves that we can see ourselves. We can't see ourselves the way others see us.
Sure.
So it's the same thing there in training as what I do. So I work with business owners and I also work with executives and teams and those sorts of things, but typically starts at the top with the business owner. We, just like training, we get really clear on how they define success, because everybody has distinct different ways they do that.
Okay.
It's not always about making a lot of money, although that's usually part of it. But for some people, they want more time. They want a life that goes with the money, or however that is. But we help them define success. And then just like the trainer, we work usually once a week. That's our typical pattern. And it's chunking it down into these small distinctions, and so that the same way you come back from an hour with your trainer and you're like blown away at all the changes you've made that are well beyond what you would have done yourself, and you start seeing definition in your muscles that you wouldn't have seen as quickly. It's the same thing with your business and your life when you work with a coach. So there's that distinction. The other thing I'll add in, there's like 3 big takeaways. So if you were to ask, and he's one of them, if you were to ask my clients, hey, what are the top 3 benefits that you derive from coaching? First one is focus, because most of us aren't, especially in this perfect storm of distraction we live in today.
Most of us entrepreneurs are a little bit ADHD.
Yeah. EHDD, it's entrepreneur HDD. So there's that. The second is that accountability. Who holds you accountable when you're on your own?
Sure.
And just like with a training, I'm going to work harder. I may not be always happy about it at the time, but I've got somebody who's pushing me, I know, harder than I push myself. So you're going to work harder. And the third benefit is because of the first two, you get results much quicker and much more in a sustained fashion.
I think the big thing is you're compressing time, really.
Great way to say it.
And I think that's the most important thing to understand is most of us can figure this stuff out, but why do you want to stumble and fail and do all these things when you have the ability to get somebody that's been there or can guide you through there and get you there much faster, whether it's through physical fitness or whether it's business or whether, just fill in the blank, whatever it is. And I think that's super important. But kind of to give you a little bit of an introduction, so you're a certified business coach, executive coach, founder of Action Coach here in New Mexico in 2008 is when you said you started? Okay.
July 2008.
July 2008. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You started at the worst possible time, which was
and
probably the worst and the best because people needed you.
Right.
And that's amazing. You were ranked top 3 coaches in North America?
Occasionally. That's a month-to-month distinction, but I got that high a couple times.
Okay, cool.
And that's within the Action Coach community. There's about 200 of us in the United States. So.
Nice. And you're also obviously ranked one of the top 100 coaches globally in the past 5 years. So that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's really good stuff. I personally, like I said in the introduction, is I speak from experience, and it's really honed me in because you just don't know what you don't know. And I think that's the number one thing as an entrepreneur or beginning athlete or anything. And I think that's what I've learned over the time from the first time, because you're the first coach I ever hired in my entire life. Up until that time, I read some books, I listened to some tapes. When I started in the business, YouTube wasn't a thing. Now today, I mean, literally anybody can go anywhere and learn anything about anything, which is amazing. But for that one-on-one time, that one-on-one coaching where somebody can really guide you week to week to week to stay on course, I think is so instrumental. So thank you for that, by the way.
Can I talk about a real quick distinction?
Absolutely.
So when I started this business with my wife, Nicole, she couldn't be here today, but she's amazing, amazing coach too. I thought it was all about the knowledge. I thought, by the way, this is an amazing book. Everyone should read this if you haven't. I met the author, great guy, baseball player was. Bottom line is, it's not about the knowledge. It's about actually putting the knowledge to use, because knowledge is just a dream unless we put it to use and then it becomes reality. And so what I like to look at this way, so we're at the edge of the Grand Canyon. Left hand is Grand Canyon, right hand is the other end of it, a mile away. And that's a huge chasm that exists between knowing and doing. And that's where the coach comes in. Coach comes in because, a lot of times, I'll say it tactfully, I'm gonna say it this way. When I meet with business owners and they decide not to move forward in the coaching, what they'll usually tell me is like, I know this stuff. Okay, so you know it. Question is, are you using it? Are you doing it? And that's where, and I'll even say this, okay, so I'm going to challenge you on that statement and say, okay, I'm going to call you back in 3 months, and I want you, if you're okay, if you're not, that's fine too, but if you're okay with it, I'll call you back in 3 months, and I'm going to ask you, okay, what have these strategies that you learned have you implemented and are using? And that's where, honestly, people fail, which is what I close that gap. Coaching closes the gap between knowing and doing. So thank you for giving me the
No, absolutely. What's funny about that is going back into the physicality world, and I love kind of going back into that physical world, because I think what it does is it really creates this level playing field, because you can't cheat your way to the top, right? So if you're competing at a certain level or you're doing some kind of workout, there's no way to cheat past they could tell if you've been going to the gym or you haven't been going to the gym, right? I mean, people can tell.
Yep.
And one of the great things, and I'm gonna give a shout out to my gym, Training for Warriors, TFW, absolutely amazing. And the one thing that is different is every class that they put on is run by a coach. Now, a lot of times we don't necessarily want to hear what the coach has to say or do what the coach tells us to do. But the most important part of this, and the reason I have seen so many results in a short amount of time, is because they push you to that next level. They let you rest, but just enough. So when you're yourself in a gym environment, oh, I'm tired. You know, you go in there with whatever attitude or preconceived notions or whatever you brought in from the day, you bring into the gym, and either you're going to be motivated or you're going to be unmotivated. You're not going to necessarily follow the schedule that you need. The funny thing about the gym that I go to, for example, all right, we do the warm up, you do all the thing. This is what we're doing today. They kind of lay out what we're going to do, and then it's go. Okay, go down, back. Okay, perfect. Okay, rest. They know exactly how time. Okay, go again. You're like, oh damn, it's a time again. You know, and it pushes you to that limit. But the most important part of this, in addition to having a good coach, is actually being in the right environment, and that's the key. I believe in most success in business or anything is being in that environment. And one of the things that I appreciate really about what you do, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, is you put on something every quarter. It's called Growth Club.
Yep.
And what's cool about this is it puts you in that environment with other entrepreneurs, business people at different various stages of their journey. Some are just starting out. Some have been doing this for a while. Some were doing really great, and then all of a sudden they got freaking kicked in the teeth, and they're figuring it out again. But the environment is probably the most important part of that. Once you put yourself in the entrepreneurial, I couldn't say that right, but into that environment, having the coach to kind of guide you through that is super important. But I think what it does is it elevates you in being in the right environment.
Yep.
And I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about environment. So.
Okay. Well, probably, and I did not coin this phrase. I don't know who did, but I've heard it enough that it's probably not something that is unheard, but I'll say it because it needs to be said. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. Mm-hmm. And I believe it. I see it in the coaching process. I call it community. You know, we've got I don't know, I'm right now working with about 30 companies, give or take, teams. Sometimes it's just the owner, but if I add up all the people I'm touching on a regular basis in my coaching, it's probably about 60. But there's hundreds of people, and you're one of them, that are in this community that Nicole and I have touched over the last 16 years. And Growth Club is one of the ways that we pull people back to sort of leverage that. But I think, you know, that's a great way to impact environment. But I think if and this is something we talk about every quarter at Growth Club, is, you know, we should all ask the question, who is the person out there, or who are the people out there right now that I should be associated with? Who are the associations, where are the associations I should be making? And these are people that pull me up instead of pull me down, that push me instead of let me rest when I don't need to rest. You know, that you become like those people. So you want to challenge yourself to always look for that. I think when it comes to environment, that's the high order bid for sure.
You know, it's so funny because my wife can walk really fast, right? We go for a walk. She's like, hey, let's go for a walk.
By the way.
And she walks really fast. And the funny thing about that is, which is extremely funny because I go and do these ultra races, but she could walk. She could probably do the ultra race faster than I could run it, you know. But we add my daughter into the mix, and my oldest daughter, and man, she can move. So she power walks. And all of a sudden, they don't slow down to dad's pace.
Nope.
Nobody slows down to dad's pace. Dad has to like adjust his pace to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important about environment is you're going to adjust your pace based on the people that you hang with.
That's right.
And so if you're hanging around the wrong crowd, the losers, whatever, what's going to happen is you're going to adjust yourself and your pace and your environment to basically to become.
Right.
So it's a very simple solution, or very simple equation, if you will. Is like, if you want to start seeing success in your life, let's just say you want to be healthy. You start getting around people that are eating healthy. They're talking about health. They eat healthy. They're not going to, to the fast food places. They're not eating the junk all the time. They're doing all these things. That's going to elevate you. The next thing is the environment. Get to a gym. And it's not just any gym. You go to a gym that people are going to elevate you. You feel comfortable. You're moving forward. You're doing that. In business, it's the same thing. Who are you going to associate with? Are you going to associate with people that are that are failing, like, oh, all these 5 people here, business owners, are about to go bankrupt. I'm going to hang out with those guys, They can really teach me what to do or what not to do. But it's really the case is you want to elevate up. You want to get around the people that are really, really going places.
Absolutely. And sometimes, most of the times, there's pain with that because sometimes these people we're hanging around that are not helping us elevate are long time friends, or sometimes family members, and we can still love them, but we have to put them in the right context so that they don't hold us back, and that can cause a little bit of friction.
I think every one of us has that family member or that friend. To a certain degree, I have that to my parents, for example. Like, love my parents, super amazing people, hardworking, but sometimes I might set a goal. And this is where it becomes very important. Like, if you set a goal, for example, and I say, okay, I want to have, let's set a big goal. Well, I want to have $100 million, and my business needs to be worth $100 million by whatever. And let's just say I tell that to my mom. My mom will be like, that's a lot of money. We don't need that much you don't need that much.
Yeah.
Why would you want to do that? My poor son, why are you working so hard? She tells that to me all the time. Yep. She's like, I always tell my mom, I said, don't feel sorry for me. I'm the idiot that does this to himself. So it's okay. Yeah. But they mean well. She wants me. She would love for me to hit that goal. But what she doesn't understand is, like, why is that your goal? And I think what's important is getting around people that you're not afraid to say those big goals out loud to people. And when you start putting yourself in an environment that people are going after some big things, your big goals sometimes aren't as big as you thought they were.
Right.
And you start elevating and thinking differently. And you start thinking bigger
than
you ever did.
Exactly.
So kind of going into this, obviously amazing to hire a coach. I think that is there's no doubt that is absolutely one of the first and best ways for most people in business to take it to the next level. But I wanted to kind of ask you about you. Like, what got you started in the whole coaching arena?
Great question. So completely, in a way, unpredictable how it landed here, but not surprising. So I grew up, you mentioned my height, I'm 6 foot, well, I'm 6'7" now. I was 6'8" before gravity kind of did its thing. And I worked really hard my earlier years in high school and college at playing basketball, and had the realization that third year in college that, hey, I'm not going to go any further with this. I'm 6'8", but had the skill set of a 7-footer. That was okay in high school, but there's 7-footers I'm playing against, and I couldn't shoot and dribble like Michael Jordan is 6'7", a guard. So I was out, and that was hard. So my initial response is, well, I can coach, because I had the amazing opportunity to play for still today the most winningest high school basketball coach in Oregon. That's where I grew up. Oregon history. He's still around. His name is Mike Doherty, and he was a tough but very successful coach, and he inspired me, and so I got the opportunity to come back to my alma mater, high school, and coach with him for a couple of years. Loved it. Felt like it was really where I needed to be. I was good at it. He pulls me aside one day and he says, Mark, because I was studying education at that time because I was going to be a coach. I wanted to be him. He goes, you know what? Let me show you something. He goes in the office, he opens up this drawer, and neatly stacked are all these letters from all these large companies recruiting him. He goes, why do you suppose companies like GE and Procter & Gamble and Lever Brothers and all these large companies back then, this is in the 70s, late 70s, well actually this is early 80s, why are all these companies recruiting just a good old-fashioned high school basketball coach? I look at him and go, well, it must be because they believe that what it takes to be successful coaching at the basketball level will transfer to business. And he goes, exactly. So why don't you go get a business degree and find a company that will allow you to coach, but coach adults, so you're not dealing with high school head and parents and all the contracts you have to deal with, and negotiating and stuff with the school district. You're just contract to contract. You make a lot more money, have a lot more happiness in your life. And I did it. So I switched, went to business and psychology, got degrees in business and a minor in psychology, and then started with this great company that allowed me to do that, which is Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Back in 1983, nobody had heard of this little tiny company. Moved to Southern California, started at the ground level, and 22 years later, I'm an executive level running part of at that time, a $4 billion a year company that's now over 10. That primarily what I did there was coach people, adults. I had employees that I would develop and get them promoted, and that was my coaching and business together. So then I retired from Enterprise. It was just time, and looking for maybe I actually thought about going back and becoming a basketball coach, maybe moving back to Oregon or wherever, but just not really, just kind of nebulous on that. But point is, had the words backwards, coaching and business. And so then I get basically a phone call from somebody at Action Coach, says, we're looking for business coaches. So you flip the words, and it was a perfect fit. So that's why I said it was kind of, in a way, accidental. I didn't know about business coaching was a thing really 16 years ago.
Sure.
And the rest is history.
Well, it's kind of funny. Yesterday, we had our monthly meeting, and I talked about connecting the dots backwards. And normally we don't know where we are and today and what's going to lead to the next thing. But looking back, you can see all these things that led up to who you are today, from that interaction with your coach and saying, hey, why don't you go to school for this and you can do this. And it's just pretty amazing to think about. He probably had the thought like, okay, Mark is intelligent, he can do this, he can handle this, he'd be a great coach. You go in this business environment and you're going to do really well, which obviously you did. So
it was a great conversation, changed my whole life.
Absolutely.
One conversation.
I had a similar conversation. I tell the story a little bit about how I got into the real estate business, kind of like the same way, but it's, a good friend, mentor said, hey, why don't you go get your real estate license? While you're at it, why don't you start your brokerage, get a qualifying broker's license and start your own company? And being of the mindset that I am, I'm like, all right, I could do that. So that day it was set in stone. That's what I'm doing. So the day that I started my company with no other company. It was my company.
Right, your QB.
As the QB, and started my own company. And everyone's like, well, don't you need to go learn? I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to learn and figure this out myself. So looking back, if I would have had the proper mentors and coaches, I look at, the first 10 years, it's a struggle. You're learning, you're figuring this out. But I think what has helped me now moving, to the second phase of my career and building the business that it has, these stories, these problems, all these challenges that I ran into really taught me a lot of things that is really helping me now. But now actually getting the advice of others and saying, okay, which way should we go here? Is really important.
Right.
Is really important. So that's pretty awesome, though. Going back to this book here, and I brought this book. This is a book that's on my nightstand. I've been promoting this to everybody in my office. But one of the things that I do, and what I love about Atomic Habits, and if you haven't read the book, I suggest you go get it. You can get it on Amazon. You can order it. The audio book, I have it in audio on Audible, and obviously the great book there, which you can actually highlight. But one of the great things, and one of the things that I've learned in there is Atomic Habits, is habit stacking. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar.
Oh, yeah.
So in the physical world, I incorporated habit stacking. So I love my coffee, every morning. This is, by the way, this is the greatest size cup for a cup of coffee every morning.
I was going to comment on that. I like that cup a lot.
It's the perfect size for coffee.
Steal one.
Yes, we'll get you one. So what I was doing before the book, I would go and press the button, and my coffee machine grinds the beans, has the water already reservoir, grinds it, does a nice little hockey puck, and it spits out the coffee. It takes about a minute and a half, depending on how much water you have in there. And prior to Atomic Habits, I'd go hit the button, I'd be on my phone, and I'd do the endless scroll, mindless waiting for my coffee. And that's what I would do. And I'm going to assume that's probably what 99.9% of all the population does in this world, is they wait for their coffee and they do the mindless scroll, or they read a book, or they do something. Well, through this book and utilizing Atomic Habits, I already had this habit that I was doing every day. And I would do it twice a day, sometimes 3. I'd drink a cup of coffee. And I was like, what else could I do in that minute? So I had this aha moment, and I was like, I could do push-ups. So I started incorporating push-ups. And at first, I did 10 or 15 push-ups. And I would stop, and my wife would walk in, and she's like, why are you breathing hard? She'd look at me with this odd look. I was like, I did some push-ups. She's like, you only did 10, and you're breathing that hard? I was like, yes.
Got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere, right? Everything has a beginning. You got to start somewhere. But ultimately, what I did is in last year, in 2023, I set a goal for January 1st that every cup of coffee equaled 50 push-ups. So for every cup of coffee, I would do 50 push-ups. Well, we go every single day. I had coffee every day. It would trigger me to remind me to do push-ups. And at the end of the year, I did 36,500 push-ups for 2023.
It's impressive.
The funny thing is about this is now when I have coffee, I'm at a mastermind, or I'm on vacation, or I'm at Starbucks, and I have a cup of coffee, the instant thought that I have in my mind is I need to do my push-ups.
Yep.
Now, I got to hold back because I don't want to be the weird guy doing push-ups in the middle of Starbucks, although I have done it. I have done it around certain groups that I belong to, because you're around your tribe, and
right.
they accept you for that crazy
and protect you.
Crazy stuff that you do.
Yeah.
But what's funny about that is it really triggers those things, and you start thinking about this, and you're like, all these other things that happen in my life, what could I do to compress time and to maximize my output every single day? And I had a conversation with my wife yesterday, and I said, because we set the timer, because we do cold plunging every morning, and when we get out of the cold plunge, we have about 5 minutes to let the shiver kind of take place before we start warming ourselves up. And in that process, I brew a cup of coffee, I do my push-ups, I did some pull-ups, I made a couple phone calls, and then we get in the hot tub. So we kind of cheat. We always get in the hot tub, which is really fun.
That's nice.
But I said back, hey, I was like, it's insane what you can accomplish in 5 minutes. And it was just that aha moment, like, how many times a day do people in general have these moments that they are just completely wasting? And when I mean wasting, it's whatever you want to do. But for me, I have these really big goals that I want to hit. So 5 minutes, it just blew my mind. I was like, I did this, I did that, I did the push-ups, I did the pull-ups, and I made a phone call, which moved the needle a little bit farther down the road. And that was 5 minutes.
Yep.
How many of those moments are we wasting every single day on everything across the board?
My answer to that is more now than ever before, because
absolutely.
we live in the world of perfect distraction.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you, a compliment to you, Thomas, is during that, the reason you're getting those results in that 5 minutes is because of intention, because you've set goals, you've set your not just your goal, and he talks about this in this book too, the difference between outcome-based habits and identity-based habits. You and I know you well enough to make this claim here, is that you have shifted your identity to, I won't say what from, but to a healthy person, and a healthy person does the push-ups. You're not fighting with yourself anymore, because that's who you are, and then you get the results, versus most people say, well, I'm going to set a habit to do 50 push-ups every time I drink my cup of coffee. Well, in their mind, they're not healthy until after they've accomplished that goal, and most often they won't, because they haven't moved their identity.
Sure.
So I'm kind of breaking into the whole discussion of goals and stuff, or transitioning maybe.
Oh, I love that.
But goals, first thing they do is they set our intention, and based on how they influence our identity.
Yeah.
We see ourselves differently. Hopefully, if it's the right goal, it's pushed our identity a little bit. It's started to put some pressure on who we are, so that we can do the things that we need to do to have the success and the goal accomplished.
We need to go a little bit deeper on this. So one of the things that I recall, first thing I ever, my interaction with you is you said something, I've heard it, you say it multiple times. It's like, what do I need to do, or who do I need to become in order to accomplish this goal? Because the profound part of it was saying, if I was already that person, I would have already accomplished that goal.
That's it.
So you're like, right? Because you start thinking about this, you're like, holy crap. Like, if I want to be a person, let's just say in business, you want to be a millionaire, or in general, you want to be a millionaire. You haven't gone there in your mind. You haven't gone there in thought. And your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what you think is what.
Correct.
And so if you start thinking to the terms, what type of habits or what type of things would a millionaire do, right? And for, I can go way back to 18 years old. I used to do what we call dream building. Mm-hmm. And so when I was 18, I was influenced in a positive way. But one of the things that I used to do every single night, and for those of you in Albuquerque know that Jackalope over on San Mateo used to be a Mercedes dealership. I became friends with the night security guard at the Mercedes dealership because every night before I went home, I would stop as an 18-year-old who didn't have any money to afford this beautiful car, and I would just dream build. And I'd look at the tag, and I'd look at all the options, and then I finally got the courage to go during the day, and I actually went into the dealership, and I'd sit in the car, and I'd feel it, and I started training myself to see what that felt like. So I think that's super important that you start really visualizing and seeing that. But let's go deep on this, because becoming the person is really, really the most important step, I believe.
It is. So the way that most people, again, set their goals is sort of backwards. They say, okay, I want this. I want to be able to afford this Mercedes, or I want that. And so then we know what we need to do to get there, but that's kind of where it ends. And so and this is really a tribute to Action Coach and the training from day one, is there's a better way. And really the better way is to really reverse that and say, okay, I got the goal, and figuring out, again, the do part's pretty simple. We help with our clients with coming up with strategies and stuff, but that's not the hard part. Is like, how do we get them to change who they see when they look in the mirror? Who's the person looking back at them? The Michael Jackson song, who's looking back at you in the mirror? I just
the man in the mirror. Yeah.
The man in the mirror, right? So, and that's where the work is. That's the hardest work, is to work on that. And so how we kind of accomplish that is and this is not this Saturday Night Live skit. The sales people quip on that. I'm good enough,
I'm bad enough, or yeah.
Whatever, but it's
Stuart Smiley.
It's not. He didn't have that right. It's basically looking inward and going, who am I? And so I'm going to use me as an example, because it's a true story here. So I was a highly successful executive at a Fortune 100, enterprise rent-a-car, Fortune 50 at that time, size company, and who, in my mind, when we started this business, I bought a coaching business. That was before, fortunately for you, it was before we met.
Okay.
So my first couple of months, I struggled really bad. Because I had the wrong identity. Instead of that, what was missing in that statement of identity was the coach. There's no coach in there. And so, I mean, literally, it's a true story. I call up, Nicole and I bought the rights to the whole state. It was not inexpensive to do that. It's a franchise. Called up Brad Sugars, said, hey, this isn't working, and I want my money back. And he goes, well, it does work. We've been doing this for 25 years all over the world. Do you think it's possible that you're the reason it's not working? I'm like, me? Oh, I know everything. I know. I studied. And he goes, well, look.
It's never us, right?
Right. And he goes, look, the best coach I've got right now in the system is a guy named Earl. He's in Denver. He's pretty close to you. You need to call him, see if he'll coach you. Just do it. And so I do. And Earl says, well, Mark, I know exactly what's wrong with you. Our first coaching session is next Monday. And literally 8 minutes into our telephone call, he's finished with me. And I'm like, well, I get the whole hour. He goes, we don't need the rest of the hour. You know what you need to do? He helped me change my identity. So I went from this lost soul somebody who was a highly, I've had all this head trash of being an ex somebody who's bought a business to coach other people to being a coach. And he helps me craft this I am statement. I said it this morning about 50 times driving over here. So if I'm going to do a podcast or run a growth club or something big, I'll say this 100 times. I'm an amazing coach who gets remarkable results for my clients. That's who I need to be, who I can be, who I am. Every day I do what I do. And once I did that, I became that person immediately. I started attracting the right people to me because of, the vibration of that. It's what shaped the success. And if you look at our business, it's never slowed down. It's a steady upcline and growth ever since because of who I became. 10 times more important than what I do or did.
Oh, absolutely.
So I do the same thing with our clients. I help empower them to be by setting the right goals. And here's the thing, the right goals are goals that we grow into. Because you said it earlier, if we were already that person, then we would have already accomplished it. So the goals that we set have to push us beyond that.
Sure.
To grow.
So I go to this Ironman story that I had. So after in 2018, I got this idea that I wanted to do an Ironman. I was inspired by a tremendous athlete. His name is James Lawrence. He was known as the Iron Cowboy. He had done, at that time, 50 full distance Ironman in 50 days. And so I was inspired to sign up for my first Ironman. And I always say that I'm more ambitious than smart. So there's a lot of people that could easily, through an easy Google search, find out that there are way more easy Ironman races out there than to sign up for a full distance Ironman for your first race, let alone your first triathlon.
No doubt.
But these were both my first. So the funny part about that is through the training, I needed to do certain things and go in my mind I had to go a certain place. And I remember I would run home every day and my street kind of has this curve. And I would envision, if you guys have all seen the Ironman at the end when they're running through and everyone's hitting everyone's hands and they're like, oh, they finished, and it shows the time and they're victorious and they finished the Ironman. So fantastic. Well, what I started doing is every day when I was running home, I would close my eyes and I would envision slapping everyone's hands, going through the finish line. So I had gone through the finish line literally hundreds of times leading up to the actual Ironman day. So in my mind, I already knew that I could complete it. I just had these pesky events in front of me that I had to get through first and foremost. A 2.5 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then 26.2 mile run. Those were all very difficult, but the one story that I want to share is the swim. Now, that was my Achilles heel. Growing up, my identity, I was, my sister's boyfriend tried to drown me when I was a little kid. I was probably the annoying brother, and he was like holding me underwater. I don't know if he actually tried to kill me, but I remember, thinking I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So that's very traumatic. So very fearful of water. We fast forward to my honeymoon. My wife and I are on St. John. We go for snorkeling. We're in this cove on this private little beach. No one else is around. It's getting late. She's like, we should probably go back. She's like, let's just swim across the bay or whatever it is.
Sure.
I'm like, sure, no problem. I could do that. My identity was like, I'm an athlete. I can figure this out.
Sure.
So I start swimming. She's gone. She's a good swimmer. She is far away in front of me. I am now exhausted. I'm in the middle of this cove. Clear water. You can see to the bottom, and it's way deep. And I couldn't go anymore. Like, I literally was like, I'm going to drown here. She just happened to turn around, see that I'm struggling. She swims back to me. And I actually tell her, I was like, just save yourself. She's like, I always say it as a joke now. She's like, shut up, idiot, stand up. Like if it was really deep, so there's no standing up. But that was my identity, is like, I'm not a swimmer.
Right.
And most people are like, you don't know how to swim, but you have a swimming pool. I'm like, well, yeah, there's a difference between swimming and having a swimming pool.
No doubt.
So now we get into the Ironman. And that identity followed through. It's like, I've got to learn how to swim. I'm afraid of water. This scares me. So I had to face that fear. Well, long story short, I hired I didn't really hire a coach. I went to a old people swimming class. Okay. It's called the Master's Program.
Okay.
And the coach there, or the instructor there, was super excited. She's like, oh, I'm going to train an Ironman. So she kept on telling me, I'm going to train an Ironman. So she's all excited. And she's like, this guy's just not getting it. Like, he's like, obviously he's an idiot, you know? But I didn't get it. And so finally she has this conversation with me, and she says, you know, I was like, maybe this swim thing is just not for you. She's like, you know, maybe rather than doing an Ironman, maybe you should do, I forget what the sport is where you have the two where you run and you bike.
Yeah, I don't know.
A decathlon, not a decathlon, a bikathlon, or anyway.
Sounds right.
Something similar. I don't know what the event is, but she tells me, she's like, maybe this swim thing isn't for you. And the instant thought that I had in my head was, F you, lady, you don't know me. And I was done with her. Like, I was like, you don't believe in me, I believe in me. I could figure this out. So now we fast forward to the actual Ironman event. It's November 24th of 2019. It's in Tempe, Arizona. The water temperature is 61 degrees.
Ouch. Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever been swimming in open water. This is the first time I've actually swum 2.5 miles, or going into it. I hadn't done it yet. And this was the first time in reality that I actually was wearing the wetsuit that I bought. So there's a lot of firsts here. So the day prior to Ironman, they let you go out to do a test swim, practice swim.
Good.
Yeah, it was great. So I jump in. I panic. Water's cold. I grab onto the canoe, the people that are there designed to save you from drowning.
Yeah.
And I'm holding on. The lady's like, oh, hold on, buddy. Like, don't tip us over. And I'm panicking. And I'm like, it's like from here to the door over there, right? That's where I'm at. And I'm panicking, and I'm like, and I got to go, it's like, I don't know, 600 meters total to do this practice swim. It takes me forever. Everyone has gone and left, and my wife's now looking for me. And she takes this, to me, it's an iconic photo of me. I finally finish it. And I'd gone from boat to boat to boat to boat to boat, struggling. All this time, like doubting, all of it up here, doubting that I can actually accomplish it. I finally finish, and she takes this picture, and it's from afar, and I have my hands on my hip and my head down, and I'm defeated, completely defeated. Now, this is where the story goes to about what your identity is, and you identify as a person. At this point in my life, I had identified as the person that was going to complete the Ironman, finish it, and doing all these things. So the race is the next day. I have lots of doubts that I'm not going to even be able to finish this. But the crazy thing about it, I never had the idea or thought to not do it. Like, I could have actually stopped. I could have done everything. I could have quit. I could have said, I could have just dropped out, got in the car, left. That day, she's like, let's get your head out of, like, let's go get your mind right. So she's like, let's go to a movie. So we go to a movie. We go see Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We're watching the movie. It's quiet. And I am literally in the movie theater crying to myself, like super quiet. Like, she doesn't know I'm crying, but I'm like crying, like, tomorrow I die. I'm literally like full of fear. All these things are happening. And I'm like, tomorrow I'm dead. Tomorrow I die. But the funny thing about it is, no time during this time did I ever think, like, well, you don't have to die tomorrow. All you have to do is just not do it, and you'll live.
Right. It wasn't an option.
That wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
It never went through my head. So that was the worst night. I had a sleepless night. I tossed and turned. Wake up early. The race starts early in the morning. The cannon goes off. It's like 6 a.m. in the morning. And the first event is the swim. Now, I wear glasses. I can't see very well. But I'm there at the swim, and she's talking to me. She's like, you're going to be okay. You know, she's like, you're going to be okay, buddy. You know, she's like, you're going to do this. You're fine. You're fine. And I'm like, obviously panicked, because I know that I am getting in the water, and I am literally dying. I am dead. It's over. It's all dead. Again, the dumb part of me is like, not even, like, I could just quit. I don't even have to do this. But I had said I was going to do it. I told everybody I was going to do it. My kids, my daughter said, my daddy's an Ironman. All these things, right?
Yep.
Going through my head. I can't quit. And thank goodness the lady that was in front of me, because in the Ironman, they go in waves.
Yeah.
And it goes beep, and then they go. The lady in front of me, it beeped. She went. She dove in. I watched her just dive in. She dove into it, and she just started swimming. And in that split second, when it was my time, when the beep went, I dove in, and I just started swimming. It took me 2 hours and 10 minutes later, and I finished. I finished the swim. I didn't die. I got out. And Arturo was actually there. I was so happy to see him. He actually had gone out to go visit and see us. And he's there with his camera, and he takes a bunch of photos
Great.
from that. But I had the biggest smile on my face because I was like, I'm not dead, you know? And it's like the rest of the day was the most amazing day. Like it didn't matter like the suffering that I went through, all the things that were going. I had the greatest day because I had won and I had beat that fear. But identifying as that person, and I've done that multiple times where it's like, well, how do you get that? How do you get that thing inside of you that you just don't quit? Like that, you're like, no matter what happens, I'm just not going to quit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most amazing thing is becoming that person. And you see, I'm sure you've seen it with tons of business people because the failure rate in business is huge.
Pretty high.
Pretty high.
Especially small business.
So as a coach, how do you get people to identify as a successful business owner when they're not seeing the success?
So I'm going to give two different perspectives. I'm going to give credit to an author here. People come in two different brands. They have a fixed mindset, meaning is what it is. I'm the old dog that can't learn new tricks. They just accept the way they are. And that I'm not judging, that's okay. So if people want to be that person, I'm not that person, you're not that person, but okay. The population have a fixed mindset. I would guess, if I were guessing percentages, I'd say at least 75%. And it's okay. We could probably go around, you could probably go around your circle of influence and family, and I can too, and we could pick off people that, that's where they are. I know I've got some family members for sure would fit that, and friends. The other side is growth mindset. So people with a growth mindset, number one, they view growth as the high order bid. The number one thing is, learning and growing, they view that as a constant, not an intermittent thing we do occasionally. It's like their goal every day is to get up and do more, ask themselves how they can learn more and do more and be more every single day of their lives, whether they're working or not. That's just who they are. So first and foremost, I am looking to work only with people with a growth mindset. That's the only people I can work with. The only people I can help is people who want to grow. And so that's the first thing I'd say is, to help people with identity, you gotta wanna, basically. You gotta wanna change and grow, and you gotta have a growth mindset. If you're listening to this podcast and you think you have a fixed mindset, there's good news. You can fix that. It's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's just a choice. It's like, and here's the book. It's called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. And she's devoted, she's a very smart gal, very, very intelligent gal, very committed to helping people see the difference and understand that you can actually take a test from this book and see where you kind of land. And I've had some clients that have not passed the test, but I've helped them get there, right? Because they want to get there. The other choice that we make in life is to have, the choice between scarcity and abundance.
Yeah.
So as it comes to setting goals, let me give you an example of that. So there's a move from goal, like I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be in debt, or I don't want to be unhealthy. And so you set that goal, let's say, to be out of debt, and you accomplish that goal. Well, you've gone from negative whatever to now zero. So the best you could hope for in accomplishing that goal is what? Zero. Versus, I want to be financially independent. Well, I could be in debt when I start, but if I'm going to set my goal that's going to really change my identity and really go bigger, it's to not just get out of debt, it's to be financially independent. So that's an abundant goal. Getting out of debt is a scarcity goal.
Yeah.
And so abundance is 10 times more powerful because abundance is what does change us, what does grease the skids so that we can change our identity and transform internally so that we become that person. So writing the right goal becomes part of that. So again, those two things, you're either fixed or a growth mindset. You either have a mindset when it comes to goals of scarcity or abundance. And there's one more thing with the scarcity abundant sort of dilemma, which is that when we, it's kind of like a cup being half full or half empty kind of thing, and looking just, it's like a lens. Okay, I'm gonna tell a real quick brief story. When I got to New Mexico, and I'm gonna say this, hopefully I don't get yelled at, but this is why my wife right now, Nicole, is running for state senate, because she believes this way, and you'll see where I'm going here.
Okay.
Came to New Mexico in 1997, and I'm taking over a struggling operation in the company at Enterprise. They were here, but they weren't really running very well. In fact, they were the worst group in the whole country. Took it. And I took it because I felt, oh gosh, I could really change this and really make a mark on my career. The only way to go is up, right?
Sure.
So I start visiting our branches here, and everywhere I'd go, I'd hear this, like, well, I know you're from California and you worked in Oregon, you guys do really well, but since we're in New Mexico, this is about as good as we can get.
It's different here.
That I heard a lot. The land of all those things.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to the next branch, and I'd say, so tell me about your income goals, let's say. And they're like, well, I know corporate average is here, but since we're in New Mexico, we're pretty happy if we get there. And it just ate at me. And so finally, I had it. Drove back to the office. At this time, I had about 20 people who reported to me. There were middle managers and my CFO and other people, and pulled them all together, assembled a meeting. And it was like, I don't know, I probably spoke for 1 minute, if that. I came in, I said, okay, people, I've been here a month. The next time anybody that works for Enterprise Rent-A-Car that I hear or I hear of saying anything about why we can't be successful, why we can't do something because we're in New Mexico, I promise you this, that will be the last thing that you say, those last words you utter as an employee of this company. And I walk out, get in my car, I just left the premises, and I got a cell phone, it wasn't that far ago, and I'm waiting for someone to call me, nothing. 30 minutes go by, nothing. An hour goes by, my administrative assistant calls me. She goes, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. How are you? She goes, it's really quiet here. They're still nobody just left the meeting. Oh, that's cool. An hour later, I call her back. And it's over a lunch period, by the way. The meeting started at like 11, so now they're hungry.
Yeah.
No one's opened the door, Mark. Great. Well, what do you think they were doing? They were trying to figure out how they can be more than they've ever been before, because they lived in a place of scarcity, and I pushed them into abundance. And so, story is, I retired 10 years later, and we had, about a dozen plaques on the wall of awards. Good old New Mexico won, and so that's why that's so dear and dear to my heart, is I've seen it. Our state still is afflicted with that a lot. It's getting better, but we've got to go after that one. And abundance is just where you got to play.
You see it so much, and it really comes down to upbringing. Like you can break free from that mindset, but a lot of it is ingrained from very early on. And I think
it's generational.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny because I actually highlighted a section here. And then your identity emerges out of your habits. You're not born with preset beliefs. Every belief includes those about yourself is learned and conditioned through experience. So super powerful. But because what that tells me is you can change. You don't have to be the person that you've always been just because you've always been that way.
Choice.
Or you see that a lot in generational. You see that in families, like, oh, well, we didn't go to college, so you don't go to college, and or the first person that went to college in their family, is they become that one person in their family that breaks away from that whole entire identity. And it's not bad, it's just most people just don't know. That's the problem, is they live in this world where everyone is the same, and it's like all of a sudden you're thinking, they're like, well, they just think differently, they're weird, they're crazy, they're the outlier, they're the crazy ones, right? And it's like, yeah, that's okay. But what you described earlier is that ultra everything mindset. Is everything that you do is striving to be a little bit better than you were before in everything you do. Not just, I don't know if you follow Jesse Itzler, but Jesse Itzler said at one time, and I'm sure somebody else has said it, how you do anything is how you do everything.
That's right.
And really focusing on the task. And it's like you can't live this life of chaos and then expect to be organized in this world, or vice versa. And you can't have this scarcity mindset and then talk about abundance. Like you can't be that person. Like you have to be your authentic self through and through. And if you want to be successful in business, in sports, in anything in life, and being a parent and being a good husband, it's like how you do anything is how you do everything. And there's been a couple times that I come home and I'm super positive during the day, and I come home and I'm negative. And my wife's like, "You're super negative today," and I'm like, "Oh, what?" She'll call me out. But it's true.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do that very long.
Right.
And without it affecting all areas of your life.
Exactly. It's a constant, takes constant effort, takes constant work, and we it's funny because my wife just said that to me yesterday. So I thought I was having an awesome day. I was having an awesome day, but I just sort of like shut that off and then go in the house, and I should have just kept that going,
Yeah. It's okay. We're human, right?
Yeah.
We're not perfect.
Short. We all fall short.
Definitely not perfect. Just ask my wife, for sure. So if anyone
Copy
ever
that.
thought,
Copy that.
she'll tell you the truth for sure. All right. No, that's good stuff, man. It's really important because I ask the question when I meet people for the first time, whether they're interviewing for a company or they're coming on, I'm always asking, what are you reading? And it's so funny when I get the response. They're like, "Oh, I'm reading, some
Harry Potter.
Or something like that." And I just laugh. I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I kind of move on. But usually it's like, I get so excited when they tell me like the Atomic Habits, or they're doing something else. I'm like, "Oh, really?" And it's so funny because when you realize that you've met somebody that you're on that same field, most of the time we'll pull out our phone and we'll open up our Audible account and we start scrolling through Audible. Like, these are the books that we're going through, or they'll, "Hey, have you heard this one, or did you read this one?" And it's like all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, okay, cool, right? I'm definitely
Meeting of the minds."
Yeah, absolutely. So that's super important. So if you guys out there want to get better in any aspect of your life, you got to find somebody and emulate people that are doing the things that you want to do. I'm going to say that number one is and you got to control. Like, everyone is so concerned about not putting the cheeseburger in your mouth, but what about what you're putting in your brain, what you're putting in your mind every single day?
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's I think Jim Rohn said it. He said you could have your enemy and your best friend, right? And your enemy gives you a hamburger or whatever. He actually talks about strychnine. You can tell the age.
Yeah.
It puts it in your coffee, and one puts sugar in your coffee. So the enemy puts sugar in your coffee. But your best friend, puts strychnine in your coffee. Well, your best friend didn't mean to. He just did, and he just poisoned you, and you're dead, right? And so many times the people around us that are closest to us, they're poisoning our minds. They're poisoning our everything. They're taking our soul from us because they're like, "Oh, you can never do that," or "You can't do this." And it's not because they don't want us to be successful. They just don't know any better, and they're just giving you that information. So you gotta protect up here importantly. So now we're gonna go back to the cue cards because we always have that. So
That's right.
what are 3 tips you'd give someone who's just starting out in business versus someone that's been in business for 20 years? What are the 2 things that you'd start off with?
First thing is, and this is just what I see, unfortunately doesn't happen enough, is start, just like just look at the planet Earth, how our I'm getting out there a little weird, but how the planet was formed. It started with a core. Start with a core. Figure out what it is what are your values, your vision, your mission. Those aren't just buzzwords. Those are the soul, the heart and brain of your organization. So get that part right. I talk to people. We don't usually do startup work. We take companies from good to great instead of 0 to good. So, but I do meet with people who have an idea and they want to start going, and they don't have that. So you got to start with number 1. Start with a core, and then number 2 is make sure that everything you do is driven from that core. In other words. And I'd say out of those 3 words, values, vision, and mission, I think especially when you're starting out, it's the values, because values drive behavior, and they're a great way to for people to quickly be guided to do and say and become the right things. So that's number one. Number two is know the difference between a plan, and you should have a plan to get a loan or something. You're probably going to need to show a business plan. That's great, but your values, your vision and mission are in ink, but your plan has to be in pencil. So let me say it this way. The planning process of planning we do every quarter, we do every month. As business owners, we're thinking, okay, annually, then quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily. That's where the rubber meets the road. And so you should have some kind of planning process that you follow that's malleable, that's flexible, because our business world is. Don't try to have a plan that's fixed and just stick with that, because maybe things have changed since you wrote that a year or two ago. So follow a plan. And then number three is that there's a level of success that becomes a cap, a lid. My left hand is that lid, and it's your leadership. Your leadership puts a lid on what your organization can accomplish. So in other words, I'll look at it this way. If you give yourself a score between 1 and 10 in leadership, and let's say it's a 5, because you're learning but you're not there yet, the best you can hope for from success from your company is a 5. And I'm going to take a Jim Rohn quote that is my favorite, which is, so how you fix that is you work harder on yourself than you do your job, because leadership requires that. It requires us to work harder on ourselves. So now that if you get that up to an 8, now that's where your company can go. A 9, that's where your company can go.
Sure.
So those are 3 things that I think are the cornerstones, if you will, of success of any business, especially people starting out.
Well, one of the things that I'm doing right now, and it's the most simplistic and basic of kind of goal setting, is writing things down. So yeah. I know there's a stat out there. And what's the stat of how many people actually write their goals down?
So this is you can't make this stuff up. I guess you could try, but I don't. I always back stuff up with credentials. But the Harvard Business School did a study. This is probably 20 years old now. And it was a 5-year study, and they tried to codify the difference between not having any goals, having only verbal goals, and then written goals. And here's what they came up with. And these numbers are a little bit scary, but maybe not. Because if you go to the mall and you see 10 people, okay, 10 people that are coming the other way in the mall, okay, 70%, so 7 of those 10 people have no goals. They just do what they do. They just put their pants on the same way they did yesterday morning. They go to work, but they don't think beyond the end of their nose. They don't really have any goals, 7 out of 10. All right, so now you're looking at 27% of the population, so almost 3 people or 2.7 people that you run into have goals, and they're verbalized. Hey, we're going to go to Hawaii this summer. That's our goal for the year. Sure. We're going to take the kids and the wife and go to Disneyland or whatever. We're going to buy a new house this year or new car, okay, whatever it is. We're going to we're going to grow our business by 25%, but they don't write them down. The 3%, that's what's left, if I'm doing my math correctly, the 3% of the world's population that write their goals down, and they back them up with written plans, sort of the things I just talked about a minute ago, but the big one is writing their goals down, account for 98% of the wealth of the world.
98% of the wealth of the world, those 3%.
So 2 men that I met when I started this business, I will not name, but if I did, you'd all know them. They're in our local community, became and still are massively successful. They do not have a degree. One doesn't have a high school degree, the other one does not have a college degree. They just, they're here, they're from here. I had dinner with both of them a year apart, coached one of them actually. The other one's probably not coachable, it's okay, not everybody is. And when I had dinner with both these guys a year apart, asked them the same question. What are your goals? Both of these gentlemen pulled out of their wallet. One was a really faded, rough, it's been there for 30 years, business card. The other one had it more like typed and was protected. And they both said, these are my goals that I wrote when I was 18, and the other one was 21. When a gentleman by the name of Ken Johns, you guys probably know his name, he's passed on now, but he was a very successful local car dealer in town, said when he mentored me, he had me write my goals down. He said, I've hit every one of those, and I've kept them. Point is, that's how I learned,
Sure.
When I started doing this. And that just brings up another distinction is every time I coach a client, I learn from them. I don't just teach, I learn while I'm teaching and coaching. It's a two-way street.
Sure.
But true story. So that's why I'm very passionate about that question. Thank you for asking it. Write your goals, people.
Write your goals down. It's like I tell everybody, and they're probably sick about hearing it in my office every day. I'm like, I talk about writing your goals down. And I know it's a chore, it's hard. It's one of those things that everyone shies away from because number one, they're like, am I doing it right?
Right.
Just start.
Yeah.
Just start. Like, what do you want? Like,
Right.
Like things will happen. And I always say activating your RAS is so important. And what your RAS is your filtration system in your brain so you don't go
Reticular
crazy.
activating system. Yep.
And I always tell people it's the same thing. You talk about like what car do you drive today? And the moment you bought that car for the first time, did you notice that there's a lot of those cars out on the road? Did you notice those before? And most people say nope. And they're like, oh my God. So what you're doing is you're really honing in and you're really figuring out what you want.
Right.
And by doing that, by writing it down and then going a little bit deeper, you don't have to go super deep, but as long as you go deeper in those, like start asking yourself, what do I need in order to do to accomplish this goal specifically? So right now, I know that you heard me do this recently, but on the 2nd of February, I put a small little challenge out through social media, and anyone can participate. You don't have to be part of my company. You could do anything you want, but I want you to go get a clean notebook, clean, fresh, not written on. Go get at the dollar store, go get a composition book, and it needs to be clean. You open up the first page, and on day one, whatever it is, write down 10 things that you want to do, as if you'd accomplished them. And on day 2, you do the same thing over again, but you don't peak. Because what happens, usually by about day 10, day 15, not only is the ranking change of the importance of the goal, but you start defining it a little bit more, and you're like, is that really what I wanted to do? And then it starts changing a little bit. So usually by 10 or day 10, day 15, it starts changing. And this is such a very basic way to start working on your goals, but it hopefully will create that habit so you start doing it and you start working it. So, but typically then you could do is once you've written down your 10 goals as if they already accomplished, then you start going into it and you're like, all right, asking this very fundamental question, what do I need to do in order to accomplish this goal? And I always like to say, like, write down 10 things that you think that you would need to do in order to accomplish the goal. It starts going a little bit deeper, but what happens is, and it's like magic, I swear to you guys, it's magic, because some of the goals that I just in this challenge, things started falling into place. Like people that I met, I walked into, phone calls that I started receiving that were just crazy. All of a sudden, it starts falling together, and it's just like, holy crap, it is magic.
So I'm going to give you a compliment. You may not remember this. Yeah, you probably will. When we were working together, when I was coaching you, in 2015, you set a goal around the end of the year, maybe October, November. But you set, I think it was maybe one of our growth clubs, you set a quarterly goal. And part of that quarterly goal was to sell $1 million of real estate in December.
Okay, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah,
and you told me, Mark, I've never done that before. I think that'd be a cool goal. So you wrote it. I remembered you wrote it, and then we got busy doing other things. And then January rolls around, and I look back at my notes, and we're meeting together, and I said, Thomas, how did you do on that goal? And you didn't know. You go, gosh, I don't remember. I kind of forgot about it. But I know we were really busy. And then I had you go back and count up your closings, and you did over $1 million.
Yeah.
That's the other part of this thing. Goals actually work.
Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes, like in that case, I know you did a lot of things to make that happen, but it was working subconsciously. You weren't conscious. You didn't have that goal sitting right in front of your computer screen every day looking at you. Sometimes people do that. I think that's a good idea, but you didn't need to because you wrote it. You already had, it was locked in. So
that's super important. So for somebody just listening to this for the first time, saying, hey, you could be 18 like I was when I first started in business. I was 18 years old. In fact, I was a little bit younger than that earlier on, but when I actually got serious with business, what advice, what book would you give, what book would you have somebody just starting out, brand spanking new, what book would you have them read, first book?
Could I give a couple?
Sure, absolutely.
Because it's just really hard to just have one. So first one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Great book.
Great book on mindset. We got to get the mind right first.
Yep, okay? Absolutely.
There's a lot of other great books, but that would be if I had one mindset book, that'd be it. Second is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Great book.
That's all about the little things, little actions and decisions we make or don't make and how they impact us in a massive way over time. Then when you need to understand business, the business side of business, Good to Great by Jim Collins is a great book still to kind of help understand, it's got some great stuff on leadership and management and sharing best practices of companies at the time that were at least great companies. I'd start with those three.
Yeah, it's definitely about setting and building that foundation. In my world, in the real estate world, I talked to my brokers and I said, hey, setting your goals is kind of like building a house. Like what's the most fun part of the house process? And most people say, oh, it's when we pick the colors or the paint or we're picking the furniture to go inside. But what's the most important part of that house build? And it comes down to plans, foundation, all the things that aren't sexy. Like, you're watching concrete dry, you're watching it being framed. Before you know it, they put up the sheathing on the outside. Then they add some insulation. They start, do all the other things to create that. And as a business or as a goal, it's always the shiny, exciting things that we want to focus on versus going after and saying, okay, I'm going to go watch concrete dry today, and I'm going to make sure that it dries solid, hard, so I can actually build this great foundation. And that's the important part of writing your goals down and spending the time, because it's not the fun work that you're doing, but it's the necessary work if you ever want to accomplish anything that you want to go after, because you need that guide. And I think the easiest way to look at goal setting is a shopping list. Like you go into the grocery store, let's just say today's Tuesday, tonight's taco night.
Right.
I want to have a fantastic taco night. All right, give me 10 things that you need to do in order to have a successful taco night. Well, when you get to the grocery store, well, first of all, you need like corn tortillas. You need the taco meat. You got to decide what kind of tacos you're going to build. If they're going to be turkey tacos, grilled, steak, whatever. And you need all the ingredients. You need all these things. You need the lime. Well, I need the salsa. I need, so you start building all that, because what's important is you build that list, and then when you get to the grocery store, you walk in the door. You're going to have focus. You're going to go to the aisles that you need to. So you're going to go through the store faster. You're not going to buy a bunch of crap. You're not going to buy the Chewy Chips Ahoy. You're not going to buy all these other things. You're not going to get distracted. You're going to get home. You're going to have everything that's on that list. You're going to be able to have a successful taco night, versus not going in with a list where you go in and you show it back at home and you have Chewy Chips Ahoy. You forgot the corn tortillas. Crap, we don't have the salsa. You got to go back to the grocery store, and you didn't write them down again because you didn't learn from your mistakes. And you come back and you're like, I forgot the lettuce, the tomato. So you go back for the third time, and before you know it, you're having tacos at 10 o'clock at night, and you could have.
Or you just go to Taco Cabana.
Or you just go to Taco. You're like, screw it, we're going to Taco Cabana. But I think that's the importance is really understanding what you want, why you want it, figure that out, and then really going after it. So good stuff for sure. So I appreciate you going deep on that.
No problem.
I want people to know, and all my friends that are business owners out there, listeners that are business owners, that are thinking about hiring a coach in our market, I want them to find out how they can get a hold of you.
Sure.
So
pretty easy. I have a great SEO guy, meaning if you just type in business coaching Albuquerque, you'll see my face in there. Action Coach pulls up first. But our website probably be the best way is actionbusinesssuccess.com. I'll also give you my email address. It's Mark Tobiassen, so MarkTobiassen @actioncoach.com. And I promise I will hit you right back in the same day.
Cool. Now you got something coming up, and we kind of want to promote. But it's not just coming up now, but it's going to be every quarter. We do a growth club.
Yep. So Growth Club is a way for us. I talked about our community in the past of getting about 100 business people, business owners. Some will be their team members as well, and executives together for better part of a day. We do this at GAR, the Greater Albuquerque Association of Realtors right now. It's a great facility. To plug them a little bit, the best facility to date that I have ever presented anything at is that place. You guys did a great job. And it's basically fulfilling the planning process of learning a little bit, being inspired by the way, I'm wearing this because our guest speaker is Bronco Mendenhall, the new football coach. And just a little sidebar on him. So he turned around BYU as his first head coaching position, did a great job there and became bowl eligible really quickly there. Went back out to Virginia, did it again there. But what's interesting and fascinating is that he looked at the fact that their businesses have been around for thousands of years. Football has been around for maybe 100 years, okay? So he before he became a head coach, he goes, well, I ought to really study business when it comes to leadership and team and those sorts of things because they've a lot more years and decades and really millennia businesses have been around, and he did that. And he studied business principles, and he basically, imported those principles to the football field, and it worked. And I'm being a business coach, I'm so excited to have somebody with his track record as a head coach here, but the way he got there, I'm fascinated by that. So he's going to speak on that. So that's and Lobos are playing San Diego State tonight, and I'm a big fan too, so I'm wearing that for two reasons. But yeah, so our Growth Club next one is March 22nd. So we have great speakers. I've got 3 other speakers too. Nicole, my wife, is going to talk about sales and how to close using DISC. I've got a gentleman that's going to talk, you guys don't know him, he's not from here, but he's going to talk about, his name is Owen West, going to talk about how to leverage databases in a way to massively positively impact your lead generation. And then the third one is Lawrence Herrera with the Performance Ranch, going to talk about wellness in the workplace. He's a trainer here in town. Be a great day. So if you're interested in that, it's go to our website. It'll be ready by the time this airs. It'll be live, and you can register for that. But yeah, we do those every quarter. We've had I don't know, what's 4 times 16? That's how many of these we put on, and they're amazing. You can tell more than I can how it's a huge impact to your life and your business.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you, Mark, for that. We have a game that we're going to play now, and the rules of the game are very simple. You must try to guess the famous coach or the team they coach. Extra points for both.
Okay.
So we're going to put this up on the screen if we can. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. Number 1.
So I'm looking. Okay.
You're looking over here.
I'm pulling a blank, man. Why am I pulling a blank? I'm not get points on him.
All right. Well, this one might be hard because he's an Italian football soccer coach. Carlo Ancelotti? Ancelotti. Okay, next one.
Oh man, I can't tell you.
This is assuming everybody knows sports coaches. So I'm
not that great at sports coaches, honestly.
Darvin Ham.
Yeah. Okay.
Lakers head coach.
I knew he was in NBA, but I.
All right.
Sorry.
Next one here.
Sorry, man.
Marie for Leo, branding coach for female entrepreneurs.
Okay. I know who she is.
All right. Well, we'll get to one. She makes Yasmin makes them hard.
He looks more like a player than a coach.
He's somebody local.
Oh, come on, Mark. So I'm pulling the blank. Sorry.
Okay, Eric Quill, New Mexico United coach.
Yes. Okay. I've not gone to a United game. I know
All right.
Now show me a Lobo coach I won't miss.
All right. Let's go.
Nope.
He just played a game, big game.
Kyle.
Yes.
Shanahan. Sorry.
Shanahan.
He does not look like Carlson.
She picked the hardest ones.
No, she didn't. I'm just not good at it.
All right.
Can't help you.
Okay, Susan Sly. She's a business coach.
Yep.
7-figure business. Okay.
Yeah. Soccer coach.
He's a soccer coach.
Yeah.
Which country?
Spain.
Close. Lionel Scaloni. He's Argentinian.
Argentina. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Well, that's no fair. He's got sunglasses on. He's in the NFL.
Yep.
Nah, I'm sorry, man.
Matt LeFleur.
Yeah, there we go.
Green Bay Packers.
Packers. Yep.
Okay, next one. Oh, you probably know who she is.
I do. I'm just not placing her.
Brene Brown?
Yeah, yeah. I've read her books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Personal
okay.
development
Yep.
and leadership. All right,
That's
next one.
By the way, Dare to Lead is one of everyone. That should be on every business owner's desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
Oh, come on.
Another soccer one.
Yeah.
Why do you pick soccer?
I know.
We're
I've seen
in.
him.
We're not. I don't
I'm
know.
not
Are you
a soccer
fan?
guy.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's okay.
I'm
Miguel
sorry.
Herrera, Mexico.
It's another soccer guy.
This is another soccer guy. Pep Guardiola.
Okay. All right.
He's the Manchester Premier League club, Manchester City. All right, and
Now that person I've seen before. That's Nicole Tobiassen.
ding, 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 ding. And where is she from?
Right here, action coach.
All right, good. You got 2
And
points.
she's running for state senate. I'll throw
Okay.
that out there too.
Running for state senate. All right, very
Yeah.
cool. All right, Mark, I appreciate you spending some time with
Yeah,
us.
it's been fun.
Hopefully, we educated our people out there.
think
They
we
know what
did.
to do. Hopefully, they can get started on their way to the next level. But in life, you got to ultra up, guys. You got to go do it. You're playing small, people. You got to stop scrolling, stop binge watching.
Right.
You got one life to live. None of us are getting out of this life alive. Why not make it count? So go live the ultra everything lifestyle and go make some shit happen. So
I love
have
it.
a great day. See you guys.
Appreciate being here.
Thanks, man.